Have you ever wondered if a single act of kindness could change not just one life, but expose all the wounds you've spent years trying to hide? The phone rang for the 10th time in 5 minutes, and I could barely process what was happening. On the screen of my old television, a woman with messy brown hair was holding a small boy against her chest, both soaked by the torrential rain in Arizona. The woman was me. The boy was Miguel. "Carmen, are you seeing this? You're on CNN." Rosa's sharp voice came through the phone like a siren. "Mija, everyone is talking about you." My hands were trembling as I held the phone. 24 hours ago, I was just Carmen Delgado, 42 years old, part-time worker at a laundromat in South Phoenix, struggling to survive on $600 a week. Now, I was watching my face on national television with the caption, "Single mother saves abandoned child during storm in Phoenix." I hung up the phone and let myself drop onto the battered sofa I bought at a second-hand store 3 years ago. How did we get here? The night before. The monsoon storm had arrived earlier than expected. In July, these storms were common in Arizona, but this one was different. The sky opened up as if someone had broken a celestial dam, pouring rain with such fury that the palm trees bent like desperate dancers. I was coming home from the night shift at the laundromat, driving my 2008 Honda Civic through the flooded streets of South Phoenix, when I saw him. A small boy, no older than 7, standing on the corner of Calle 16 and Buckeye Road, completely soaked, without shelter, and with no one around. My first instinct was to keep driving. Not because I didn't care, but because I had learned the hard way that getting involved in other people's problems could cost more than I could afford. My family had taught me this lesson repeatedly. But then he looked directly at me. His large, frightened brown eyes met mine through the wet windshield, and something in my chest broke. It was the same look I had seen in the mirror for years, lost, abandoned, waiting for someone to stop. I stopped the car. Mijo, ¿qué haces aquí?" I asked in Spanish, running toward him with my jacket over my head. The rain was so strong I could barely keep my eyes open. He didn't answer, just stared at me with those huge eyes. He was shaking violently, his small clothes clinging to his skinny body. There was no time for questions. "Come with me, okay? Let's get you out of this rain," I said, gently pulling him toward the car. In the back seat, I wrapped him in my work jacket. He smelled of rain and fear, and something deeper, neglect. I recognized it because I had carried that smell with me for a long time. "Como te llamas?" I asked, turning on the heater. "Miguel," he murmured, and that was the first word he said. "Miguel, ¿dónde está tu mamá?" He shook his head, and tears began to mix with the rainwater on his face. "I don't know. She left with her friend and told me to wait, but that was a long time ago." My heart sank. She had left with a boyfriend and told him to wait. But that had been a long time ago. For a 7-year-old, a long time ago could mean hours or days. I looked at my phone. 11:30 p.m. I should have called the police, child services. It was the right protocol. But Miguel was shaking so much his teeth were chattering, and I knew the system wasn't always kind to kids like him. Kids like I had been. "Okay, Miguel. First, let's warm you up and get you something to eat. Then we'll think about the rest, okay?" He nodded, and for the first time, he gave me a faint smile. I drove to my apartment, a small studio in the Valle del Sol complex, where the rent had gone up again last month, but I couldn't afford to leave because finding something cheaper in Phoenix was like searching for water in the desert. Inside, I gave Miguel dry clothes, a shirt of mine that fit like a dress on him, and made the only substantial meal I had, lentil soup that I had made to last the week. My bank account showed $47.83, and I still had 4 days until my next paycheck, but seeing him eat as if he hadn't had food in days made my empty stomach worth it. "Está muy buena, Señora Carmen," he said, using my name that I had told him. Mi abuela solía hacer sopa así. ¿Dónde está tu abuela ahora? En el cielo, he answered simply, continuing to eat. While he ate, I called Child Emergency Services. The call lasted 40 minutes, being transferred from department to department, explaining the situation repeatedly. Finally, a social worker told me they would send someone in the morning, but with the storm and it being Friday night, it could take until Monday. Monday? I asked incredulously. Mrs. Delgado, I understand your concern, but we're short-staffed and... I hung up the phone. Miguel had fallen asleep on my couch, curled up in the only decent blanket I owned. His little chest rose and fell peacefully, and for the first time in hours, he seemed safe. I sat in the kitchen chair and watched him sleep. My phone vibrated. A message from my sister Esperanza. Carmen, I need you to lend me $300. It's urgent. I'll pay you back next week, I promise. I looked at the $47.83 in my bank account, then at Miguel sleeping on my couch. For a moment, I felt the familiar guilt settle in. Esperanza always had an emergency. Dad always needed money for medical bills. Mom always had an extra bill she couldn't pay. And I always found a way to help, even when that meant living off ramen for weeks. But this time, looking at Miguel, something was different. For the first time in years, my money, as little as it was, would be used for someone who truly needed it, someone who had been abandoned by the people who should have protected him. Just as I had been emotionally abandoned by my family, even though I was always there for them. I wrote back, no puedo ahora mismo. Tengo una emergencia también. The response came in seconds. ¿Qué puede ser más importante que la familia, Carmen? Siempre has sido egoísta. Egoísta. The word they always used to describe me every time I dared to say no, every time I needed something for myself. Always selfish, never daughter, never sister, never someone with their own needs. I hung up the phone and focused on what really mattered at that moment, the abandoned child sleeping on my couch, who for a few hours felt safe and fed. In the present. Now, 24 hours later, the whole world knew our story. Someone in the building had seen Miguel and me walking in soak the previous night and posted it on the local Facebook group. Somehow, the story was picked up by a local journalist, then national, and now international. The phone rang again. This time it was a number I recognized, Esperanza. Carmen, estoy viendo las noticias. No puedo creer que no me dijiste nada sobre esto. I took a deep breath. Hello, Esperanza. Everyone is talking about you, sister. They're saying you're a hero. Why didn't you tell me you were taking care of a boy? Interesting how she didn't ask if Miguel was okay, or if I needed help, or how I was dealing with all the attention. The first question was why I hadn't told her. It happened so fast, I replied, trying to keep my voice neutral. Well, I have good news. Some people are asking how they can help you financially. I saw someone created a donation page for you. Can you believe that? You'll finally have enough money to help the family as you should. And there it was. Not 5 minutes into talking about the situation, and Esperanza was already calculating how my sudden public attention could benefit her. Not a word of pride, not a question about my emotional well-being, just a quick segue into how this would affect the family's cash flow. Esperanza, I have to hang up. Miguel is waking up. It was a lie. Miguel was in a temporary family placement arranged by social services, being evaluated while they looked for relatives or a suitable placement. But I needed to end the call before I said something I couldn't take back. Okay, but call me later. We need to talk about how we're going to handle all this attention. I hung up the phone and looked back at the television. Now they were showing an interview with the social worker who had come to pick up Miguel. She was explaining how my decision to keep him safe during the storm had potentially saved his life, as the temperature had dropped to dangerous levels overnight. For the first time in a long time, I had done something right. Something that mattered. Something that hadn't been calculated to please my family or avoid conflicts, but simply because it was what my heart told me to do. The phone rang again. This time, it was an unknown number with a Phoenix area code. Hello? Mrs. Delgado? This is Jennifer Martinez from KPHO Channel 5. We'd like to do an interview with you about. I hung up. Then disconnected the phone from the wall. For a few precious hours, the night before, I had experienced something I hadn't felt in years. Pure satisfaction from doing the right thing without expecting anything in return. I had fed a hungry child, given shelter to someone lost in the storm, offered safety where there had only been fear. And now everyone wanted a piece of it. The media wanted my story. My family wanted the money that might come from the attention. Strangers wanted to turn me into a symbol or a hero. But I just wanted to know if Miguel was okay. I grabbed my car keys. There was an address the social worker had given me, where Miguel was staying temporarily. Not to cause trouble or interfere in the official process, but because a child who had slept on my couch deserved to know that someone still cared about their well-being. As I headed for the door, a realization hit me like lightning. For the first time in my adult life, I had made an important decision without consulting my family, without worrying about their opinions, without calculating how it would affect them. And the sky didn't fall. The world didn't end. Maybe it was time to see what other decisions I could make for myself. Have you ever noticed how genuine kindness bothers people who have never experienced it? The foster house was in a middle-class neighborhood in Tempe, with well-manicured lawns and perfectly aligned palm trees that made my apartment complex look like a refugee camp. I parked across the street and spent a few minutes watching through the living room window, where I could see Miguel playing with a puzzle on the coffee table. He looked smaller in that big house, more fragile, like a desert flower trying to grow in strange soil. But he was clean, fed, and there was something in his movements that suggested he felt safe. I knocked on the door, my heart racing. I wasn't sure if I was doing the right thing, but the need to see him was stronger than my doubts. Sarah Foster opened the door, a woman in her 50s with gray hair and kind eyes. Her face lit up when she recognized me. You must be Carmen. Miguel hasn't stopped talking about the lady who saved me. Please, come in. Miguel ran to me as soon as he saw me, wrapping his thin little arms around my waist. Señora Carmen. Pense que no te volvería a ver. My heart tightened. Of course, you'd see me again, Mijo. I wanted to make sure you were okay. Sarah watched us with a warm smile. Miguel, why don't you show Señora Carmen the puzzle you were working on? As Miguel eagerly pulled me to the table, Sarah whispered softly, he had nightmares the first night, calling for you. The social worker said it's normal, but it seems you made a real impression on him. I sat on the soft couch, much more comfortable than any furniture I owned, and watched Miguel explain his dinosaur puzzle to me. His eyes sparkled as he spoke, so different from the frightened child I had found in the storm. Sabes que, Señora Carmen? Mrs. Sarah says I might stay here for a while. She has a room just for me, and a yard with a swing. That's wonderful, Miguel, I said, forcing a smile. Part of me was happy he had found a safe place. Another part, which I tried to ignore, felt a pang of loss. Sarah served coffee and homemade cookies. The social worker told me you're looking for Miguel's relatives. Apparently, his paternal grandmother might live in Tucson, but they're having trouble locating her. Why su mama? I asked, though I already feared the answer. We haven't found her yet. The police said the apartment where Miguel lived was evicted 3 days ago. The neighbors said she left with a man in a truck and didn't come back. I looked at Miguel, who had stopped playing and was listening to our conversation with that seriousness that children develop when they learn too soon that adults aren't always trustworthy. "It's okay," I said, squatting to be at his level. "The important thing is you're safe now, see? And Mrs. Sarah seems really nice." "Yes, muy nice," he agreed, then hesitated. "But, can you visit me again?" Before I could respond, my phone vibrated. I ignored it, but it vibrated again. And again. "Sorry," I murmured to Sarah, checking the messages. "Esperanza, Carmen, ¿dónde estás? Toda la familia está tratando de la marut. My cousin Lucia, prima, 6 voce na TV. Que orgulho. Cuando nos vimos para celebrar. My dad, Mija, necesito hablar contigo. Es importante." And so on. 17 missed messages, all from family, all now urgently wanting to talk to me. "Está todo bien?" Sarah asked, noticing my expression. "Yes, just family," I said, putting the phone away. I spent another half-hour with Miguel, helping him with the puzzle and listening to him talk about his favorite dinosaurs. When I finally stood up to leave, he held my hand. "Señora Carmen, are you going to leave me too?" The question hit me like a punch in the stomach. "Miguel, I'm not going to leave you. But you need to stay here with Mrs. Sarah because she can take care of you better than I can right now. That doesn't mean I'm leaving, understand?" He nodded, but I saw the doubt in his eyes. It was the same doubt I had carried for years every time someone promised me something. On the way back home, I stopped at Walgreens to buy aspirin. My head was pounding, and I still had to deal with the flood of calls from my family. While I waited in line, I overheard 2 men talking behind me. "Did you hear that story about the woman who helped the boy in the storm?" "Yeah, man. Typical, right? Probably looking for attention. Bet she knew someone was filming." "Exactly. No one does anything out of kindness these days. There's always an angle." I turned slowly. The 2 men, both in their 40s, in construction uniforms, kept talking as if I wasn't there. "Actually," I said, my voice calmer than I felt, "no one was filming. No one was watching." It was midnight, it was pouring rain, and I stopped because I saw a child alone on the street. They looked at me, first confused, then with a mix of embarrassment and suspicion. You're her?" one of them asked. "I'm Carmen Delgado. And you're talking about something you don't know." I paid for the aspirin and left, but their words stayed with me. Was this how the world saw acts of kindness now? Always with cynicism, always looking for the hidden motive? When I got home, I found my dad, Roberto, sitting on the steps of my building. At 71, he was still imposing, with his gray hair combed back and the straight posture he maintained from his days in the army. But today he looked tired, older. "Hola, Papa. ¿Qué haces aquí?" "We need to talk, Mija. Can we go up?" In my small apartment, he seemed even bigger, and the space even smaller. I made coffee while he sat in my only kitchen chair, looking around with an expression I couldn't decipher. "Tu mamá está muy molesta contigo," he started, without preamble. "Por qué?" "Because she saw the news. She sees you on TV, people are talking about you as a hero, and she wonders why you never do anything like that for your own family." I felt something hot rise in my chest. "Perdón? Carmen, you know what I mean. Your sister needed money yesterday and you said no. Your cousin Lucia still needs help with the down payment for her house. I need help with heart medication. But you found money and time to help a stranger. I slammed the coffee cup in front of him harder than I intended. Papa, I gave Miguel the last meal I had at home. I had $47 in my bank account. He's a 7-year-old child who was abandoned in the rain. Why nosotros somos tu familia que también necesita ayuda? You need help or you want it? Because there's a difference, Papa. His eyes narrowed. ¿Qué quieres decir con eso? I took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. Esperanza needed $300 for an emergency, but last week she posted pictures of a $50 dinner on Instagram. Lucia wants help with the down payment for a house that costs more than I earn in 3 years. You want help with medication, but when I asked if you applied for the Medicare assistance program, you said it was too much work. Carmen. No, Papa. Let me finish. My voice trembled, but I continued. For 15 years, since I started working, you've come to me every time you needed money. When Mama broke her arm, I paid the hospital bill even though I didn't have health insurance. When Esperanza lost her job, I paid her rent for 3 months. When Carlos was arrested, I paid the bail. And do you know what I got in return? He sat in silence, his hands holding the coffee cup. Criticism. Always criticism. For being single at 42. For not having kids. For working in a laundromat instead of having a real career. For living in this small apartment. You take my money and then make me feel like I'm not good enough. Eso no es verdad, mija. It isn't? Then tell me, Papa, when was the last time anyone in the family asked how I was? Not what I could give, not if I could help with something, but simply how I was? The silence stretched between us like an abyss. I could see my dad thinking, going over the memory, and I saw by his face that he was coming to the same conclusion as I was. Miguel, I continued, my voice softer now, thanked me for every spoonful of soup. He said please and thank you. He held my hand and called me ma'am, with respect. A 7-year-old child showed more gratitude in one night than my family has shown in 15 years. Papa placed the cup on the table. Entonces, ¿qué estás diciendo? Que no somos tu familia? I'm saying that maybe it's time for me to start treating family like people who care about me, not like people who only remember me when they need something. He stood up, his expression hardening. Tu mamá va a estar muy dolida cuando lo cuente esto. Papa, I said, standing up too, Mama will be hurt because I said no? Or because she knows it's true? He didn't respond, just walked toward the door. Before leaving, he turned to me one last time. Carmen, family is the most important thing. Don't forget that. You're right, Papa. Family is the most important thing. The problem is, I've never been treated like family. I've been treated like a bank. After he left, I sat on my sofa, the same one where Miguel had slept 2 nights ago, and finally allowed the tears to fall. Not tears of regret, but tears of release. For the first time in my adult life, I had told my family the truth. My phone vibrated again. More messages from the family, now with a more urgent, demanding tone. But there were also other messages. From neighbors saying they were proud of me. From strangers offering support. From the social worker updating me on Miguel. And one message that caught my attention, from an unknown number. Sra Delgado, I'm a journalist from Phoenix New Times. We'd like to do a deeper story on you and your journey. Not about what happened with Miguel, but about who you are. Many people are interested in learning more about the woman behind the gesture. If you're interested, call me. I stared at the message for a long time. My entire life, I had been invisible, defined only by what I could give others. Now, for the first time, someone wanted to know who I was as a person. Maybe it was time for me to figure that out too. Before we continue Carmen's journey in Chapter 3, I want to take a moment to talk to you. If Carmen's story is touching your heart, if you recognize yourself in the family dynamics she's facing, or if you simply believe that stories about genuine kindness and self-discovery deserve to be shared, leave a like. Your like shows me that stories like this matter to you and encourages me to keep creating content that explores the complexities of family relationships and the journey to find our own voice. Have you ever wondered why it's easier to be honest with strangers than with the people who should know us better? 3 days after my confrontation with my father, I decided to call the journalist. Her name was Emma Rodriguez, and her voice on the phone had that warm quality that made you want to trust her immediately. Carmen, thank you for returning my call. I know you're probably getting a lot of attention right now. Yes, and honestly, I don't know how to handle it, I admitted, looking out the window of my apartment at the parking lot where there were 3 cars I didn't recognize, probably reporters waiting. That's exactly why I want to do this interview. Everyone is talking about what you did, but no one is asking who you are. How about we meet somewhere quieter? I know a small cafe in Scottsdale, away from all this commotion. The Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf on Scottsdale Road was a refuge of normalcy. Emma was a woman in her 30s, dark hair pulled into a messy bun, wearing jeans and a simple blouse. Nothing like the television glamour I expected from a journalist. So, she said, turning on a small recorder after we ordered coffee, let's start from the beginning. Not the night of the storm, but you. Who is Carmen Delgado? The question caught me off guard. When was the last time someone asked that? I don't know if I know how to answer that. That's okay. Let's try it differently. Tell me about your family. And then, without really knowing how, I began to speak. Maybe because Emma was a stranger, or maybe because keeping these secrets had become too heavy a burden. My parents immigrated from Sonora when I was 5. Dad worked in construction, Mom did domestic cleaning. We were poor, but there was love, you know. At least in the beginning. What changed? I grew up and started working. I fiddled with my coffee. When I was 16, I got a part-time job at a diner. It was to help with my school expenses, but Esperanza, my younger sister, wanted new shoes for the school dance. Mom said she didn't have the money. So, I used my first paycheck to buy the shoes for her. Emma nodded, writing in her notebook. And that became the expectation? Not immediately. But when I started making more, when I got a better job, there was always some family emergency. And I always found a way to help. Even when that meant sacrifices for you? I laughed without humor. I've always been good at making sacrifices. When I was 22, I was saving to go to community college. I wanted to study nursing. I had almost $2,000 saved up. What happened? Carlos, my younger brother, was arrested for drunk driving. The bail was $1,500. Guess where the money came from? Emma stopped writing. You never got to go to college? I tried again a few years later. This time I had saved $3,000. But Dad had a heart attack, and even with the hospital insurance, there were bills they couldn't pay. Carmen. The truth is, I continued, feeling like a dam had broken inside me, I stopped dreaming a long time ago. I stopped making plans for myself because there was always someone in the family who needed something more urgent. And do they know the sacrifices you made? They know, but they don't think it was a sacrifice. To them, it was just my duty as a daughter, as the older sister. Family takes care of family, you know. But who takes care of you? The question hung in the air like smoke. I had never thought of it that way. No one, I guess. I take care of myself. Carmen, when was the last time you did something just for you? Something that didn't benefit anyone else but you? I stayed silent for so long that Emma gently repeated the question. I can't remember. She turned off the recorder for a moment. That's not going in the article, but do you realize how sad this is? A woman in her 40s who can't remember the last time she did something for herself? Tears started to form in my eyes, but they weren't tears of self-pity. They were tears of recognition, like when you finally see your reflection in a mirror after years in the dark. When I got home, I found my mother, Elena, waiting at the door of my apartment. At 69, she was still a force of nature, her gray hair always perfectly styled and her posture one that didn't accept excuses. Mama, ¿qué haces aquí? We need to talk, Carmen. Now. Inside the apartment, she sat in my kitchen chair with the authority of a queen taking her throne. Your father told me what you said to him. And? How do you talk to your father like that now? With that disrespect? I took a deep breath. Mama, I wasn't disrespectful. I just told him the truth. The truth? The truth is that your family doesn't matter to you? The truth is that I matter very little to my family. Her eyes narrowed dangerously. Carmen Luisa Delgado, how dare you say that? How do I dare? Mama, when was the last time you called me just to see how I was? Not to ask for something, not to tell me about someone else's problems, but just to ask how I was? I always worry about you. Caring and showing concern are different things, Mama. She stood up, her posture growing even stiffer. I don't recognize you, Carmen. I don't know what happened to you, but this isn't you. You're right, I said, also standing up. This isn't me. The Carmen you know is the one who always says yes, who always finds a way to help, who never complains, who never asks for anything for herself. That Carmen is tired. Tired of what? Tired of being treated like a convenience. Tired of my worth being measured only by what I can give. Tired of living like my only function is to solve everyone else's problems except my own. Mama crossed her arms. So, what do you want? For us to ask permission to be your family? I want to be treated like family, not like a solution. That doesn't make sense. It makes perfect sense, Mama. Family cares about each other. Family celebrates each other's achievements. Family is there not just when they need something, but also when you need support. We've always been there for you. When? Give me an example. A moment when you were there for me when I needed it. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. I could see Mama thinking, searching her memory, and I saw her expression slowly shift from indignation to something closer to uncertainty. Carmen. Exactly. You can't think of one, Mama. Because every time I needed something, emotional support, a listening ear, someone to hear me, you were too busy with your own lives. But when you needed money, I was always available. My phone rang. It was Miguel's social worker. Sorry, Mama, but I need to answer. Ms. Delgado? I have news about Miguel. We were able to locate his paternal grandmother in Tucson. She wants to meet him, but there are some complications. What kind of complications? She's 78 and has health problems. She may not be able to care for him full time. We're exploring other options, but, well, Miguel asked if he could see her before any decision is made. Of course. When? This afternoon, if possible. He specifically asked for you to be present. I hung up the phone and turned to Mama, who had overheard the entire conversation. You're going, she said. It wasn't a question. Yes, I'm going. To help a child who isn't even yours. To support a child who needs me. Mama slowly shook her head. I don't understand you, Carmen. You spend all this energy, all this heart on a stranger, but you have nothing for your own family. You still don't understand, Mama. Miguel thanks me. Miguel is happy to see me. Miguel treats me with respect and care. He doesn't see me as a source of resources, he sees me as someone who cares about him. And we don't? I grabbed the car keys. You see me as an obligation that fulfills other obligations. Carmen, wait. I stopped at the door. Mama, I love you. I'll always love you. But I can't live my life anymore like my only function is to solve problems you created. Miguel reminded me of something I had forgotten. What? That I have worth beyond what I can give to others. On the way to Tucson, I thought about the interview with Emma. She had asked something that hadn't left my mind. What do you want for your life, Carmen? Not for your family, not for Miguel, but for you. And for the first time in decades, I started to seriously think about it. Maybe it was too late for nursing, but it wasn't too late for education. Maybe it was too late for some dreams, but not for all of them. Maybe it was too late to be the daughter my family wanted, but it wasn't too late to be the woman I wanted to become. Miguel was waiting for me at the foster house, wearing a clean shirt and with his hair combed. He ran to me as soon as I arrived. Señora Carmen. ¿Vas conmigo a conocer a mi abuela? Of course, mijo. We're in this together. And as we drove to Tucson, Miguel chattering excitedly about how nervous but excited he was, I realized something important. For the first time in a long time, I was exactly where I wanted to be, doing exactly what I wanted to do. Not because someone asked me to. Not because it was my obligation. But because I chose to be there. And that feeling of choice, I realized, was the difference between being useful and being valuable. Have you ever noticed how some people can see your whole soul in just one look? Miguel's grandmother's house was in a modest neighborhood in Tucson, with adobe walls and a small cactus garden that spoke of a lifetime spent in the desert. Dolores Herrera was 78, but her eyes still sparkled with an intensity that immediately reminded me of Miguel. So you're the woman who saved my grandson, she said, hugging me with a surprising strength for someone so small. Bless you, Mija. Miguel was nervous, hiding behind my leg, looking at this woman who shared his brown eyes and stubborn brow. Miguel, I whispered, this is your grandmother. She came a long way to meet you. Dolores slowly crouched down, her joints protesting, and extended her hands to Miguel. Oh, my beautiful grandson. You look so much like your dad when he was little. My dad? Miguel asked, stepping out from behind me. Did you know my dad? Of course I knew him, Mijo. He was my son. We sat in the small living room, decorated with family photos and Mexican artifacts that told the story of a lifetime. Dolores served homemade horchata water and cookies that smelled of cinnamon and love. Your dad's name was David, she began, showing Miguel a photo of a young man with the same shy smile. He was a good man, worked very hard. But he got sick when you were just a baby. Did he die? Miguel asked, his little voice almost a whisper. Yes, my love. He died when you were 2. Your mom, she didn't know how to handle it. She became very sad, and then she started making bad decisions. I looked at Miguel, seeing how he absorbed this information about his history. His small hands were clenched into fists in his lap. I tried to keep in touch, Dolores continued, looking at me with eyes full of regret. But your mom changed numbers, moved several times. I lost track. I've been looking for you for 5 years, Mijo. Really? Miguel's eyes lit up. You were looking for me? Every day, my love. Every day. I spent the afternoon watching Miguel discover his history, seeing Dolores show photos of the father he never knew, telling stories about the family he didn't know he had. There were uncles and cousins, traditions and memories, a whole legacy his mother had denied him. But I also watched Dolores. At 78, with diabetes and arthritis, she was clearly struggling. Her medications were organized in a box with compartments for each day of the week, and she had to stop to rest several times during our visit. Señora Carmen, she said to me when Miguel was in the bathroom, I can see why my grandson loves you so much. You have kind eyes. He's a special boy, Dolores. He deserves all the love in the world. Yes, he does. But She paused, her hands trembling slightly. I want to take care of him, but I don't know if I can. My health, it's not good. What did the social workers say? They said they could consider placement with me if I have help. A nurse to come a few times a week, someone who can help with Miguel when I can't. Miguel came running back, holding a small guitar Dolores had given him, the same guitar his father had played when he was a child. Look, Señora Carmen. Grandma says my dad used to write songs. Watching Miguel's joy, seeing him finally connected with his family, something solidified inside me. A decision that had been forming for days finally took shape. On the way back to Phoenix, Miguel fell asleep in the back seat, still holding the guitar. I called the social worker. Monica? It's Carmen Delgado. About Miguel's situation. Ms. Delgado, I'm glad you called. Dolores called us after you left. She really wants to keep Miguel, but you're right, she needs support. What if she had that support? Well, that would be ideal. A child should be with family whenever possible. But finding qualified caregivers in Tucson who can work with our budget. Monica, I want to move to Tucson. Silence on the other end of the line. Ms. Delgado, may I ask why? Because Miguel needs his grandmother, and Dolores needs help taking care of him. And because I need a new beginning. That's a big decision. Do you have work there? A place to live? I'll figure it out. Monica, these last few days have made me realize that I've been living my life for other people, always reacting to their needs, never making active decisions about what I want. This time, I want to choose. And you choose. Miguel? I choose a life where I can make a difference. Where I can use my experience caring for others for something that truly matters. And yes, I choose Miguel. When I got home, there were 7 cars in the parking lot. I recognized them all, the whole family had gathered in my apartment. I climbed the stairs with Miguel still asleep in my arms. Sarah Foster had agreed to let him stay with me overnight since we had been out all day. I opened the door to find my mother, my father, Esperanza, Carlos, my cousin Lucia, my uncle Fernando, and his wife Isabel, all squeezed into my small living room. What's going on here? I asked, gently placing Miguel on the sofa. We came to talk to you, Dad said, his voice deep. The whole family is worried. Worried about what? About how you're acting, Esperanza said, her arms crossed. Mom told us what you said. Carlos told us about the money you didn't lend us. And now we hear you're planning to move to Tucson. I hadn't told anyone about my decision yet. How do you know about this? Small community, Carmen, Lucia said. The social worker knows someone who knows Isabel. News travels fast. I looked around the room at all these people who said they loved me, all gathered to confront me about how I was living my life. Sit down, I said calmly. If you came here for a family intervention, let's do this right. Carmen, Uncle Fernando began, we know you've been under stress. All this with the boy, with the press, but moving to Tucson? Leaving your family? That's not normal. Normal according to who? Normal according to family, Mom said. Family doesn't abandon family. I looked at Miguel sleeping on the sofa, then at all of them. You want to know what's not normal? Let me tell you what's not normal. I sat in the only remaining chair, forcing them all to look at me. It's not normal for a 42-year-old daughter to have never had a serious boyfriend because every time I started investing in someone, there was a family emergency that drained all my emotional and financial energy. Esperanza opened her mouth to protest, but I continued. It's not normal to work at a laundromat for 15 years because I never managed to save enough money for education, because there was always someone who needed my money more than I did. Carmen. Carlos started. It's not normal to not have health insurance because I use all my extra money helping family who has health insurance. It's not normal to live in a studio apartment because every time I save for a better place, someone needs bail money, or rent help, or money for emergencies that somehow always come up when I have savings. The silence in the room was deafening. But you know what's really abnormal? It's a whole family being upset not because the daughter/sister is unhappy, but because she stopped financing everyone else's unhappiness. That's not fair, Lucia protested. Not fair? Lucia, you asked me for money for the down payment on a $200,000 house while I live in a $600 a month studio apartment. Esperanza, you asked me for money for emergencies while posting pictures of expensive dinners on Instagram. Carlos, I paid your bail 3 times in the last 5 years. Dad shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Carmen, we love you. You love me, or you love what I can give. That's the same thing, Mom said. No, I said, my voice rising for the first time. Miguel stirred on the sofa, but didn't wake. That's not the same thing. Love is not conditional on what you can give. Love is not measured in dollars. So, what do you want us to do? Uncle Fernando asked. I want you to treat me like family, not like a resource. I want you to call me when you're happy, not just when you need something. I want you to celebrate my victories, not just mourn when I can't solve your problems. And if we can't do that? Esperanza asked, her voice defiant. The question hit me like a punch, but it also set me free. Then you'll have proven my point. That you don't love me, you love what I do for you. Miguel stirred on the sofa and opened his eyes, looking confused at all the people in the room. Señora Carmen, is everything okay? It's all fine, Mijo, I said, crouching beside him. This is my family. They came to visit us. Miguel sat up, rubbing his eyes. Hello, he said politely to the room full of strangers. Hello, boy, Dad replied, his voice softer. Miguel, I said, do you remember me telling you I was moving to Tucson to be close to you and your grandmother? His eyes lit up. Really? Are you really coming with me? Yes, I really am. He threw himself into my arms, giving me the tightest hug in the world. I love you so much, Señora Carmen. I love you too, Mijo. When I looked up, all my family was watching us. On some faces, I saw understanding beginning to form. On others, I saw only confusion and resentment. It's just a kid who isn't yours, Esperanza said, but her voice had lost some of its aggression. You're right, I said, still hugging Miguel. He's not my biological son. But in 5 days, he gave me more genuine love, more true gratitude, more pure joy than I've received from this family in 5 years. Carmen, Mom said, her voice breaking slightly, are you really going to leave us? Mom, I'm not leaving you. I'm moving to Tucson, which is a 2-hour drive. But if the only way you'll keep me in your life is through financial obligation, then maybe it's better you let me go. The room fell silent for a long time. Finally, Dad stood up. We need time to think about all of this. Sure, I said. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere for a few more weeks. There are things I need to organize. One by one, they started to leave. Carlos stopped at the door. Carmen, for the record. I'm proud of what you did for that boy. It was the first time in years that someone in my family had said they were proud of me. After they all left, Miguel and I sat on the sofa. He was playing with the grandmother's guitar, trying to form chords with his small fingers. Senora Carmen, why was your family so angry? They're not really mad at me, Mijo. They're mad because things are changing, and change can be scary. But change can be good too, right? I looked at this wise 7-year-old, who had experienced more changes in a week than many people do in years, and still managed to see hope. Yes, Miguel. Change can be very good. That night, after Miguel fell asleep, I called Emma, the journalist. Emma? It's Carmen. About that question you asked, about what I want for my life. Yes? I've figured it out. I want a life where I can choose my commitments based on love, not obligation. Where I can use my experience caring for people to make a real difference. And where I can finally discover who I am when I'm not constantly reacting to everyone else's needs. And do you think you can find that in Tucson? I think I can find it by being true to myself, no matter where I am. Tucson is just where I choose to begin. After hanging up, I sat by the window looking at the empty parking lot. For the first time in decades, I didn't know exactly what the future held. And for the first time in decades, that didn't scare me. In fact, it gave me hope. Have you ever noticed how different it is to build something when you genuinely want to be there? 3 weeks after the family meeting, I was packing my life into cardboard boxes I got at the supermarket. 42 years of existence surprisingly fit into 17 small and medium-sized boxes. Looking at them lined up in my empty living room, I didn't feel sadness, I felt liberation. Miguel was sitting on the floor, helping me pack the books I had collected over the years but rarely had time to read. Senora Carmen, are we going to have more books in Tucson? We'll have all the books you want, Mijo. Your grandmother told me you're learning to read really well. Miguel smiled, the smile that had become more frequent in the past few weeks. The transformation in him was remarkable, from a scared, withdrawn child to a curious and joyful boy who asked 1,000 questions about his new life with Dolores. My phone rang. It was Monica, the social worker. Carmen, I have good news. The paperwork for your move has been approved. You can officially be Dolores's support caregiver for Miguel's custody. Really? Really? Dolores spoke so highly of you, and your work references are excellent. Plus, your decision to move to be available impressed the judge. He said it was rare to see that level of commitment from someone who isn't a biological family member. After hanging up, I picked up Miguel and spun him in the air. Did you hear that? It's official, I'm going to be your caregiver. Does that mean you're going to live close to me and Grandma forever? It means I'll be there for as long as you want me around. Then forever, he shouted, making me laugh, a sound that was becoming more natural to me every day. 2 hours later, while Miguel was at the foster house packing, there was a knock at my door. It was Carlos, alone this time. "Hi, Hermana." "Hi, Carlos. Come in." He looked at the boxes, at the empty apartment. "So you're really doing this?" "Yes, I'm really doing this." He sat on one of the boxes, since there were no more furniture. "Carmen, I came to ask for your forgiveness." The apology caught me completely off guard. "Why?" "For everything. For all the times I asked you for money. For all the times I didn't ask how you were doing. For not realizing that." He stopped, running his hands through his hair. "I didn't realize we were using you." I sat on another box, facing him. "Carlos. No, let me finish. After what you said the other night, I started thinking. Really thinking. And you're right, Carmen. We all, saw you as a solution, not as a person." Tears started to form in my eyes. "Thank you for saying that. I also started thinking about all the things you sacrificed for us. College, your relationships, your dreams. Carmen, I didn't even know you wanted to be a nurse. I didn't always talk about my dreams. It was easier not to talk when it seemed like they would never come true. But that's not fair. You should have been able to talk about your dreams, especially with family." We sat in silence for a moment. "Carlos, do you forgive me for saying no all those times recently?" "Carmen, I have nothing to forgive you for. I need to thank you for finally setting boundaries. It made me realize I need to solve my own problems instead of expecting you to solve them." "And how are things now?" "Better, actually. I got a second job. I stopped drinking so much. And, well, I'm going to therapy for anger management." I looked at my younger brother, who wasn't so young anymore, at 36, and saw something I hadn't seen in a long time: responsibility. "I'm proud of you, Carlos." "Thank you, Hermana. And I'm proud of you too. What you're doing for Miguel, it's beautiful." The next day, I was loading the last boxes into the rented moving truck when Esperanza showed up. "Carmen, can we talk?" Unlike Carlos, Esperanza seemed defensive, her arms crossed and her chin raised defiantly. "Sure, Esperanza. What do you want?" "I want you to know that I think you're making a mistake." "Okay. You have the right to your opinion." "This is not opinion, Carmen. This is fact. You're moving to Tucson for a kid you didn't even know a month ago. You're abandoning your real family for, what? To play house?" I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Esperanza, Miguel isn't a game for me. And I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm moving to Tucson, which is 2 hours away. But you know that's not what I mean. You're abandoning your responsibility toward us." "What responsibility?" "Your responsibility as the older sister. As the one who's always been there to help us. Esperanza, you're 35. Lucia is 40. Carlos is 36. You're adults. It's not my responsibility to solve your problems. So that's it? After all these years, just nothing?" "It's nothing, Esperanza. If you call me because you want to talk, because you're happy with something in your life, because you want to share a victory with me, I'll be here. If you call me because you need money, I'll suggest you find other solutions. That's not fair. What's not fair is expecting me to finance your lives forever." Esperanza fell silent for a long moment. "I don't recognize you, Carmen." "I know. And honestly, that's okay. Because the Carmen you know was unhappy, tired, and lived to please everyone but herself. And this new Carmen is better? I looked at the truck loaded with my new life, thought of Miguel humming at the Foster house while packing his own things, thought of Dolores preparing the room that would be mine in her house. This Carmen is authentic. And for the first time in a long time, this Carmen is happy. Esperanza shook her head and walked away. Well, I hope it's worth it. I do too. The move to Tucson was surprisingly smooth. Dolores's house had a small room in the back that she had prepared for me, with a simple but comfortable bed and a window that looked out onto the cactus garden. It was small, but it was mine by choice, not by lack of options. Miguel adapted quickly to life with Dolores. Watching them together was like watching two pieces of a puzzle finally fitting together. Dolores told him stories about his dad, taught him songs in Spanish, and gave him the kind of stable, unconditional love every child deserves. And me? For the first time in decades, I had time to think about what I wanted to do with my life. I got a part-time job at a local nursing clinic. The pay was lower than at the laundromat, but the work was infinitely more fulfilling. I was actually helping people, using skills I didn't even know I had. Most importantly, I enrolled in night classes at Pima Community College. At 42, I was finally going to college. Señora Carmen, Miguel said one night while I was studying at the kitchen table, "Can I help you with your homework?" "Of course, mijo. You can help me with these anatomy flashcards." Sitting next to me, holding my study cards, Miguel asked a question that took me by surprise. "Why didn't you do this before?" "Do what?" "Study. Learn new things. Be happy." The question from a 7-year-old hit me deeper than any therapy session could have. Because I didn't know I could, mijo. For a long time, I thought my job was to take care of everyone but myself. But now you take care of yourself too. Now I take care of myself too. I like it more like this. I like it more like this too. 6 weeks after the move, I received an unexpected call. It was my mom. "Carmen, how are you?" It was the first time in years that she had started a conversation by asking how I was doing. "I'm good, Mama. Really good. And you? How are you?" "I'm thinking. Thinking a lot about what you said." "Yes? Carmen, I don't know how to do this. How to be different." "Different how?" "Like a mom who asks about your life without needing something. Like a mom that celebrates your happiness instead of feeling threatened by it." My heart squeezed. "Mama, the fact that you're thinking about it already is a start. Can I visit you? In Tucson? Just to see how you are, not to ask for anything, just to see my daughter's new life?" Tears began to roll down my face. "I would love for you to visit me, Mama." "Really? Really?" The next week, Mama drove to Tucson with Carlos. Watching her meet Miguel, seeing her interact with Dolores, observing her look around at my small but peaceful new life, I could see something changing in her eyes. "It's very small," she said about my room, but not critically, more like she was trying to understand. Have you ever noticed how life really begins when you stop living the lives of other people? 10 months later. The certificate arrived by mail on a March morning when the desert was starting to wake up with small flowers that stubbornly existed despite the dry soil. Carmen Luisa Delgado, Certified Nursing Assistant, Pima Community College. Miguel, now 8 years old and with growing confidence every day, took the certificate from my hands and examined it carefully. "Señora Carmen, does this mean you're a real nurse now?" "It means I'm a certified nursing assistant, mijo. And next semester, I'll start the full nursing program." Dolores, now 79 but with renewed energy since Miguel and I came into her life, clapped from her favorite chair. How proud I am, Mija. David would be so proud to see how you take care of his son and pursue your dreams at the same time. It was true. Miguel had transformed from a scared child into a curious and joyful boy who asked questions about everything, who played guitar like his father, and who had learned that trustworthy adults don't just disappear. And me? I had transformed into someone I didn't even recognize, in the best possible way. That afternoon, while Miguel was at school and Dolores was resting, I received an unexpected call. It was Emma, the journalist. Carmen. What a coincidence, I was just thinking about you. How are you? I'm good, Emma. Really good, actually. I graduated as a nursing assistant this week. That's wonderful. Listen, I have an interesting proposal for you. Do you remember doing a follow-up interview? Our original story about you and Miguel was one of the most read of the year, and many people are asking how you both are doing. I thought for a moment. 10 months ago, media attention had scared me. Now, I saw an opportunity. Emma, yes. But with one condition. What's that? I want to talk about more than just Miguel. I want to talk about what happens when you stop living to please other people and start living to be authentic. The interview took place at the same cafe in Scottsdale where we had met before. But this time, I wasn't the nervous and uncertain woman I had been. I knew who I was and what I had to say. Carmen, when we first talked, you told me you couldn't remember the last time you did something just for you. How has that changed? Emma, I've done things for myself that I didn't even know I wanted. I went back to school, I got a career I love, I learned to play guitar with Miguel, I started reading for pleasure again. But the biggest change is that now I understand the difference between being useful and being valuable. Explain that difference. Being useful means your value is tied to what you can do for others. Being valuable means you have inherent worth as a person, regardless of what you can give. And your family? How did they react to your changes? I paused, thinking about all the ups and downs of the past few months. Some grew with me. My brother Carlos is in recovery, he has 2 jobs, and we talk regularly, real conversations, not requests for money. My mom visited me 4 times, and each visit is better than the last. She's learning to ask me about my life, my studies, my happiness. And the others? Esperanza and I, we're still working on it. She still sees my new life as a betrayal to the family. Lucia basically stopped talking to me after I said no to the house loan. And you know what? That's okay. How so? Because I've learned I can't control how people react to my healthy choices. I can only control whether I continue making those choices. That must have been hard to accept. It was. But Miguel taught me something important. A 7-year-old child showed me more gratitude and genuine love in one night than some adult family members in decades. That made me realize the problem wasn't with me, the problem was with relationships based on transactions instead of genuine love. After the interview, I stopped by Walmart to buy groceries. In the checkout line, a young Hispanic mother in front of me was counting coins, clearly trying to figure out if she had enough money for the items in her cart. Her small daughter was crying, tired and hungry. 10 months ago, I would have hesitated, calculating whether I could afford to help, worried about my own precarious financial situation. Today, I simply extended my card to the cashier. Can I pay for her groceries too? The young mother looked at me, surprised. No, Señora, it's okay. Please, I said gently. I've been in your situation. Let me help. Tears appeared in her eyes. Thank you, Señora. How can I repay you? When you're in a better situation, help someone who needs it. That's how it works. That night, Carlos called me. It was our weekly conversation, something that had become a ritual in recent months. Carmen, guess what? What happened? I got offered a promotion at work. I'm going to be a construction supervisor. Carlos, that's wonderful. I'm so proud of you. Thanks, Hermana. And, well, there's something else. Yes? I'm seeing someone. A woman I met in therapy. Her name is Maria, and she makes me want to be a better person. My heart filled with genuine joy. I want to meet her. Really? Aren't you going to ask me if she's good enough for me or if I'm moving too fast? Carlos, you're an adult who is doing the work to improve your life. If you're happy, I'm happy. Carmen, thank you for not giving up on me. Even when I was not a good brother. You've always been my brother, Carlos. You just needed to find a way to be a brother to yourself that didn't destroy me in the process. The next weekend, Mama came to visit again. This time, she brought a gift for Miguel, a new set of strings for his guitar, and flowers for Dolores. Carmen, she said as we walked through the cactus garden, I want to ask you something. What, Mama? Do you forgive us? For all those years when we didn't really see you? I stopped walking. It was a question I had both hoped and feared for at the same time. Mama, I forgive you. But more importantly, I forgive myself. Forgive yourself for what? For allowing it to go on for so long. For not setting boundaries earlier. For believing my worth was in what I could give instead of who I was. And now? Now you know your worth? I looked at the house where Miguel was teaching Dolores a card game, where my nursing books were on the kitchen table, where I slept every night in peace knowing I was exactly where I chose to be. Now I know my worth isn't in what I can do for others. It's in the fact that I am a person who deserves love, respect, and happiness simply by existing. Mama nodded slowly. You're right, Mija. And I want to learn to love you like that. Without needing anything in return. You're already learning, Mama. The fact that you're here, asking how I am, interested in my happiness, that's love. That night, after Mama left and Miguel was asleep, I sat with Dolores in the small courtyard, looking at the desert stars. Dolores, can I ask you something? Of course, Mija. Do you think I made the right choice? Leaving Phoenix, changing my whole life, all of this? Dolores laughed softly. Carmen, you didn't change your whole life. You finally started living it. What do you mean? Before, you were surviving. Reacting to everyone else's needs, everyone else's emergencies, everyone else's demands. That's not living, that's just existing. And now? Now you choose. Every day, you choose. You choose to study, you choose to work at the clinic, you choose to be here with Miguel and me. You choose to maintain boundaries with family that love you, and you choose to let go of relationships that drain you. Sometimes I feel guilty. Why? Because I'm happy when some people in my family aren't. Carmen, Mija, listen to me. Your happiness is not responsible for other people's unhappiness. And their unhappiness is not your responsibility to fix. It was a lesson I was still learning, but it became clearer every day. 6 months later. The nursing graduation was on a sunny Saturday in October. Miguel, now almost 9 years old, was in the front row with Dolores, clapping so loudly that everyone looked at them. Carlos came with Maria, a sweet woman who clearly saw the best in my brother. Mama and Papa drove together from Phoenix, and for the first time in years, there was no tension between us. Esperanza didn't come. She sent me a message, congratulations, I guess. I hope it's worth it. And you know what? That was okay. Because I had learned that you can't force people to grow, you can only grow yourself and see who chooses to grow with you. After the ceremony, we went to a small restaurant to celebrate. Miguel insisted on making a toast. "I want to make a toast," he said, lifting his soda cup, "to Señora Carmen, who saved me in the storm and then saved herself too." It was a surprisingly deep statement for a nearly 9-year-old, but Miguel had always been wise beyond his years. "And you know what else?" he continued, grinning. "Now she can save other people like a nurse, but this time she gets paid for it." Everyone laughed, and I realized that Miguel had grasped something important: the difference between helping professionally, with boundaries, compensation, and purpose, versus being personally exploited. 2 years later. I'm writing this at my small desk in the house that Miguel, Dolores, and I bought together, a modest house but ours, with a garden where Miguel planted tomatoes and where Dolores grows her desert roses. Miguel is 10 now, in 5th grade, and plays guitar better than I do. He talks about his father with love instead of sadness, and still calls me Señora Carmen, even when I tell him he can just call me Carmen. Dolores, at 81, is still a force of nature, but she accepts help with grace. We take care of each other, a real partnership instead of a relationship of dependence. I work as a registered nurse in the pediatric unit at the local hospital. Every day, I see children who need someone to truly see them, to listen to them, to treat them with dignity. And every day, I remember the moment in the rain when I stopped for Miguel. Carlos married Maria last month. I was the maid of honor, and during their vows, he looked at me and silently said, "Thank you." He's been sober for 3 years and is one of the happiest men I've ever known. Mama and I talk every week now. Real conversations about my life, my goals, my happiness. She still struggles sometimes with wanting to fix everyone's problems, but she's learning. Papa and I have a different relationship now, more respectful, more equal. He told me last month that he's proud of the woman I've become. Esperanza and we're still working on it. She calls me occasionally, usually when she needs something, but sometimes just to talk. It's progress, I guess. Yesterday, a new social worker called me. There's a sister and brother, ages 6 and 8, who need a temporary family after being found alone in an abandoned apartment. Ms. Delgado, I know this is short notice, but would you consider? 10 years ago, I would have said yes immediately, without thinking about logistics, without considering if I had resources, without discussing with Dolores and Miguel. Now, I said, let me discuss with my family and call you back tomorrow. Because that's what healthy people do. They consider. They plan. They make decisions based on what's sustainable, not just what feels good in the moment. This morning, after a family conversation with Miguel and Dolores, we decided that yes, we have room, love, and resources for 2 more children for a few weeks. But this time, I'm not saving anyone. I'm not sacrificing myself. I'm simply sharing what I have because I choose to, because I'm able to, and because love multiplies when it's freely given instead of extracted. As I finish writing this, Miguel is on the patio playing guitar for Dolores, who is teaching him a song his father used to sing. The sound drifts through the open window, mixing with the desert wind and the distant sound of children playing. Tomorrow, 2 scared children will come to our door, and we will welcome them not because we have to, but because we choose to. We'll feed them, comfort them, and show them that sometimes, when the world seems dark and cold, there are people who will stop in the storm. And when they leave for their permanent family, because they will leave, because that's how foster care works, we will miss them but we'll be okay. Because our lives don't depend on being needed. Our lives are built on being authentic, on choosing our commitments, on loving freely but with boundaries. 6 years ago, a single mother fed a boy in the rain. It made national news not because it was extraordinary, but because kindness without agenda had become rare. But here's what I learned: genuine kindness isn't rare because people aren't good. It's rare because so many people are living lives they didn't choose, in relationships that drain them, meeting expectations that never satisfy. The real news story wasn't that I helped Miguel. The real story is that helping Miguel helped me remember who I was underneath all the layers of people-pleasing and obligation. The real story is that sometimes, you save someone else and discover that you've been waiting your whole life for someone to save you, and that someone turns out to be yourself. Tonight, I'll go to sleep in a house I chose, next to people who value me, in a life I designed instead of one that just happened to me. And if that's not a happy ending, I don't know what is. P.S. If you're reading this and recognize yourself in any part of Carmen's original story, know this: you deserve to be loved for who you are, not what you can give. You deserve relationships that fill you up instead of drain you. And it's never too late to start choosing your own life. As Miguel said, el cambio puede ser bueno también. Change can be good too. Sometimes, it's the best thing that ever happens to you.